Hi, this is Miss Lewis, your librarian at St. Green Middle. This weekend we have a long weekend because Martin Luther King Jr. Day observed is on Monday the 18th. Dr. King's birthday is on January 15th, so we celebrate it on the closest Monday to it every year. So I wanted to share with you some books about Dr. King and also about the Civil Rights Movement. This first one is by Tonya Bolden, and it's called MLK, Journey of a King. One of the things I love about Tonya Bolden is that her books contain not just the words, but also photographs, and she lets you know little snippets about the movement from different periods of time. Her books are really engaging to read, so it's not going to be like your stereotypical textbook that you might read about history. In addition to biographies about Dr. King, we have some about people close to him. One is Dare to Dream, about Coretta Scott King and the Civil Rights Movement. This is by Angela Shelf Medearis. And this book starts with Coretta Scott King's childhood and what things she encountered, and then not only talks about her marriage to MLK, but also about the things she did for the Civil Rights Movement, because she did a lot as well. If you're interested a little bit more about some specific movements that Dr. King did, one of them that you can look at is Marching for Freedom by Elizabeth Partridge. The subtitle is Walk Together, Children, and Don't You Grow Weary. It talks about the Montgomery Rights March and Dr. King's role in that, but it also talks about what children were doing and how they were able to participate in the march as well. So if you want to know more about what students your age were doing at the time, this could be a really good book to pick up. One of the people that was really important in that march is John Lewis, Senator Lewis, who just passed away this past year. He has an awesome graphic novel series that we just purchased for the library, March Book 1, 2, and 3, and it's a graphic novel, so it tells you all about his time as a child raising chickens at home, through his time with the SNCC, which was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, where he worked with college students during the Civil Rights Movement, and then also his time as a senator when he grew older. Another movement that John Lewis was a part of was the Freedom Rides in 1961. And this book, 12 Days in May, does a really good job of taking you day by day through what the Freedom Rides were, with really large, awesome pictures as well as text. And this was to fight against the fact that segregated buses were not allowed across state lines at that time. And so this was a really revolutionary thing that they were doing, and a really dangerous thing. Another person who was in Martin Luther King's sphere, and this is another new book for the library, was Bayard Rustin. He was one of the primary organizers of the March on Washington, and this book is called Troublemaker for Justice, the story of Bayard Rustin, the man behind the March on Washington. So this is a really interesting biography about a figure that's not as well known as Dr. King, but also extremely important to the Civil Rights era. Maybe you want to know a little bit more about what young people were doing at the time. We have a couple of other new books. This is Child of the Dream, a memoir of 1963 by Sharon Robinson. She was the daughter, or is the daughter, of Jackie Robinson, the baseball player. And so it talks about what her and her brother went through at the time of civil rights and when Jackie Robinson was breaking the color barrier in baseball. Finally, and this is one of my favorite texts that I'm sharing today, This Promise of Change, One Girl's Story in the Fight for School Equality, is actually written by Joanne Allen Boyce, who is the topic of the book, as well as another author, Debbie Levy. And she talks about what it was like to go to Clinton High School and reintegrate schools. This book is told, you get to see a lot of the first person documents of the time, so different news coverage, but she also tells the story in verse. So if you're like me and love to read books that are told in poetry format, this would be an awesome one to read. If you have any more questions or want any more recommendations, I would feel free to get in contact with me. My email is lewisa@bcsdschools.net, but feel free to put any of these books on hold and enjoy them like I have. Have a great weekend.